Welcome to the Tradies in Business podcast with your hosts Warwick Bidwell and Nicole Cox. Divert your phone and grab a brew as Waz and Nick unpack tips, tales, secrets and stuff-ups from guests both inside and outside your trade, helping educate and inspire you to break the cycle of gut-busting and money stress and create a true trade business.
Morning, Warwick.
Good morning, Coxie.
I beat you!
That was so childish, Nicole.
I know, but it's Friday.
You're such a child.
I am a child.
G'day, listeners. How the fuck are you?
Good morning.
There
It's
you go.
fucking Friday. Let's just get all the fucks out of the way straight up.
Have you got any left to give, Coxie?
No, I really don't.
No fucks left to give.
No, it's been a week.
Your account is dry, drained, empty.
I've got something funny. Let me find it.
Okay. While you're finding it,
Yeah.
I will remind our listeners to leave us a review on iTunes. I'm just going to get it in there. Just get in there early. And
Well, they haven't tuned
say-
out yet, so now's the right time.
yeah. I'll hit them before they press stop and go and do something else. Do you do that, listeners? Do you get distracted and then stop listening to an episode?
Do you know
partway
I never knew you could, and I probably shouldn't say this on air, but I didn't know you could fast forward it.
through? Don't tell them that.
So I listened to a couple of crime podcasts and I don't like the intros. I can fast forward that shit. I don't need to listen to that. I did not know that.
You're a skipper.
I am a skipper.
So
I found my
Coxie-
funny thing.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask you a deep and meaningful question, but let's keep it light.
All right. Well, it's Friday, so I wanted to read some of these that I read this morning. So these are quotes out of the mouths of babes. Are you ready?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. All right.
Don't wipe away my tears. I want to feel them on my face, said by Henry, who is 2. I'll just take a nap. That's how you solve that. Kiara, 7. I like this one. This one's for you, Warwick. I'm too sad for pants. Jamison, 2.
I'm often too sad for pants, Coxie.
I like this one. This is an F word kind of day. 4. That was an anonymous one. Hang on. No, I've got some really good ones here. Wait. Oh, I like this one. But how am I supposed to know if I'm bored or hungry? They feel the same. That was by Lex,
They
who's 5.
do.
They do feel the same.
Lex is right.
Oh, here's a good one. I did not mean to make that face out loud. Anonymous, 9. That's me all over.
I was going to say, you've made lots of faces out loud, Coxie.
I make some pretty good faces out loud.
Absolutely.
But this is the one I was coming to. I don't care and I'm not getting any more cares today.
Oh, and that so relates to not having any more fucks to give,
Exactly.
not giving any more cares. So, Coxie, given that it is a Fuck It Friday,
Yep.
and we want at times to, I'm using old language here, to dive down some rabbit holes.
We
Would you
would
like
never
to
do that.
skip along through the forest and jump down a rabbit hole with me this morning?
Yes, let's do it. Come on.
Now, I'm going to speak a little more slowly so that my mouth doesn't get ahead of my brain with some of this conversation
I think that's a good idea.
and get a bit tangled up in some things. But I do want to just tip the hat to anybody listening who feels like they're a bit impacted by the way they were brought up, either by parents or the way they were mentored, knowingly or unknowingly, in the industry, especially because we see a lot of situations with our listeners, with our clients, our members, where you and I look at that often. Well, I know I do. I should actually ask you what you see, but I look at those situations a lot of the time and I think, oh, I wonder what was going on when you were a young bloke or chick. And how was your father or your mother or your first boss or the person who did your apprenticeship sign off? Or it's often, and I don't want it to be an excuse for people. It's not about blaming the past and blaming others for the way we are, but I think actually recognizing it and realizing that so much of what we do now comes from our experiences in the past.
This got really deep for a Friday episode.
Oh, we can fix that, Coxie.
Yeah, I'm
Just
sure
drop
we
a few
can.
F-bombs in there and we'll sort it right out. But it's I actually get a bit angry about, well, parents, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who kind of set their kids up for a bunch of fuck ups in life,
Mm-hmm.
because they did a pretty shitty job, maybe not knowingly, but they did a shitty job of building their kids up, and now their kids are grown ups and running businesses and leading families of their own, or parenting kids of their own, and I can see some cycles being perpetuated, and I would like to change that, Coxie.
This is really deep. Okay, my first point on
This
that
is
would
going to
be-
surprise people.
It is. It's
like
Friday.
they're tuning into a fucking Friday. It's like, oh, this will be a bit of fun. It's like, oh, what the fuck, man?
We'll just put this one on your lap and you can unpack it later. My first point to that would be, I don't think there are many parents that knowingly make these mistakes. I think you kind of fall into the same cycles that you were brought up in. So if I think about my own family, my upbringing was questionable. I had a rock star dad who worked very hard to ensure we all felt very loved and validated and encouraged, and he was amazing. Still is. Still my biggest supporter. Mum, not so much. Not so much. Mum was great when we were really little, but by the time we were teenagers, it went out the window. And at the time, she was just doing what she thought was best, I'm sure. I don't think for one moment she stopped and thought that I'm ruining my children or I'm setting them up for their own failures in times to come. I feel that as parents, we probably just we're a bit like a mirror, and we practice everything our own parents have taught us unless we make a choice to make it different, which is really hard to do.
Yeah, it's a big awareness piece, isn't it? And I've talked about my old man on the show a bit, and I love my dad. So you can guess what's coming now.
I've met your dad, and I had a lovely evening with your father.
Lucky you.
Yes.
I
Helps being outside the family.
I know. But that's the thing, see? Like, so many people have said to me over the years, like, oh, your dad's awesome. He's funny, and, he had a good chat with me. And it's like, yeah, but that's a social
it's different,
gathering.
Right?
That's a third party thing. And without digging too deep into this and making it another was get some therapy session on the podcast.
It'll be the second one this week.
Clearly I need lots of therapy. To give you an idea, listeners, this might give you some insight. So my parents live 3 states away from me back in good old Queensland. And my dad's very unwell. He's got basically what they call vascular dementia. So he's losing his marbles because of lung disease. And so it's not because of that he's the way that he is. He's always been this way. But basically, Mum's cleaning out the shed, right? And Dad's got a shitload of tools and really cool stuff that I'd love to get my hands on because, it's my dad. My dad was a builder, and I idolised my dad when I was a young bloke. Hung around with him on building sites. I laboured for him. I worked with him on the little hobby farm. I was the eldest son. Well, I still am. And he's got all these tools, right? He's got this bloody compound miter saw and epic router and all sorts of stuff that I'd love to get my hands on. Mum tells me that the old man has offered them for free to some guy who did jail time that came and mowed their lawns a few times. And
ouch.
Yeah. And so Mum's had to go into bat for me and convince the old man to let Warwick have them and not give them to this other person for free that he doesn't even know. And that's the epitome of my dad's relationship with me. You know, never been told that that he loves me, never told me he's proud of me, like, you know, all that sort of shit, right? So that aside, that I've noticed that shows up in my life in the way I relate to others. And it shits me because I know I do and say things that are grounded in the old man's way of parenting or not parenting. And so I see others that have this same affliction, Coxie. And I really feel for them. And then I also think, dude, do you realise where that's coming from? And
I don't think we do.
do you think you might want to do something about that?
I think these are default behaviours. They're that ingrained in us. They become the default behaviour, and it's not unless we're consciously making a choice that we behave differently. So if I reflect on myself, my mother is my that parent that you look to, being a woman. I've had to work really hard not to perpetuate what I was taught. Really hard. It's been a lot of therapy in there. Not to do the same things that were done to me. And I'm at a place of peace with that now. It's a long time on. We haven't spoken for 12 years. And I'm okay with that. It used to hurt me dreadfully. It doesn't hurt me anymore because I've had to do the work to get to the point of understanding it's okay that mum chooses to have nothing to do with me. That's her choice. I'm all right with that. I've created my own life and I don't actually need that contact anymore anyway. But I find, if I call myself out here, I find when I'm really upset or I'm really pressured or I'm really stressed, I fall into some of those default behaviours.
Yeah.
Really quickly.
It's going to happen, right? And I reckon the therapy industry makes a lot of money out of us by perhaps not coming up with tools that we can use on our own.
Yeah.
I had an interesting conversation with someone recently about they've got a bit of tennis elbow stuff going on, and they know that I've been a CrossFit trainer and you know, I've had physio, I've had a bunch of injuries and stuff over the years from motorbikes and all sorts of crazy stuff. And so they were asking for my perspective and opinion on the best type of physical therapist to go and see. Was it a physio? Is it an osteo? Is it a chiro? Is it a sound bowl healer or whatever the heck you want? And and the thing that bugs me about some of those physical therapies is they almost create this dependency on the therapist.
Very much so.
And, you know, unless you're going back getting more treatments, you can't self-manage. You can't actually take ownership of your own health or your own situation. And I feel like the same happens with, the same thing happens with business coaches, Coxie. There you go. Whoa. G'day to
Holy
business
moly.
coaches listening, which is probably just you and me. But it's what's pissed me off about business coaching over the years as an industry is there are people that create a dependency for their clients. It's not growth oriented. And it doesn't mean you can't work long term with someone, but I feel like they hold back on stuff that could actually be used by the individual in their own time. And I see the same with therapy of the mind, you know. It's like, give me the tools. I want to know the tools. Give me the stretching plan that I can do myself at home to rehab my shoulder on my own. I'll pay you heaps of money for that because that's something I can learn and use over and over and over again.
Yes.
And I think for a lot of us, we've sought out change in the way we parent or run our business, and I feel like maybe there's not enough out there as far as toolkits go, or maybe they're not as visible.
It's a good question.
Man. Now, I know you haven't even had your second coffee this morning, so I'm sorry, Nicole.
This is a big conversation for a Friday morning.
Well, you know what it is? It's like I've thought, fuck it, I'm going to have this conversation on fucking Friday because that is kind of the point of these episodes. But I think the awareness is really hard to get, and for any of us and for any of you listening that have got an awareness that shit, that's my mum.
Yeah.
I'm just hearing my mother through me, or my dad through me, or my first boss, and it's not great.
Mm.
I reckon we have to dig deeper and look harder for tools that we can learn to use to start to break that cycle. I know it's been a shit ton of work for me over my life, and I still get caught out by it. I still trip over and smash my face on the pavers, and that's really hard, and that sucks. Like I'm coming up late 30s, and
I thought you're 19.
But it still catches me, and I'm like, come on! I'm a coach. I've spent tens of thousands of dollars working on all this shit, and it's still there.
Because it's default, I suppose. It's so ingrained. It's impossible to totally get rid of. It's the mindfulness around that makes the change. And if we relate this back to what we were talking about some situations that are coming up with some of our clients, actually a lot of our clients, in which their clients are walking all over them. So that's how this conversation sort of started this morning.
Yeah.
And creating situations in their business and their personal lives that they have no right to do. However, our clients have allowed it to happen in that they've become people pleasers, I suppose. And I can take this one right back to the builder. He's very much a people pleaser. He'll do anything at his own expense to help other people. But unfortunately, other people take advantage of that. And that's something we're seeing time and time again with our own clients. So it's a default behavior he has because of the way he was brought up. It causes him a lot of pain and angst and difficult times, and hasn't been great for the business over the years. And all because it's a default behavior he wasn't aware that he was perpetuating. So I guess, and that's where this conversation started this morning. It's those default behaviors in business that we want to encourage you to have a look at. Is that working for you? Is that continuing to take you down on that growth path to success that you particularly want to be on, or is it not working?
Yeah.
Because if it's not working, we can help you.
Yeah, and I think a big opportunity is to have a look at the results we're getting in our life and go, how's my relationships? How's my business going? Am I seeing what I want here? And if the answer is no, then I reckon there's a fair chance that you might be perpetuating, this is a word we've used a bit, some of those cycles unknowingly, unwittingly. And that really sucks when you find that out. I know it's been really hard for me to actually realize and accept that it's not that it's not me. It's just that, this is way deeper than just me reading a book about fucking who moved my cheese and, everything's sweet. It's a lot deeper than that. And so I think if you're listening to this and you ever feel like despite your best efforts, things still seem to go to shit. And so if you're listening to this and you've ever had that gut feeling where it's like, there's got to be something going on here. I don't know. I've worked really hard on this. I've done a management course. I've seen a therapist, or I've read a bunch of books, and I still keep coming up with the same shitty scenarios with people or clients or whatever. I reckon, it's okay to say, well, maybe this is some deeply rooted shit from my past, from a parent or a boss or something. Well, I think actually allowing ourselves to not blame in a victim way, Coxie, but allowing ourselves to go, you know what, I can't change the way I was brought up. I can't change the fact my dad was a narcissistic, critical person for me personally. But what I can change is to not let that unconsciously become who I am. If that made any bloody sense whatsoever.
It didn't. It's incredibly deep for a Friday. I feel like we're going to have to lighten this up at the end so that people don't think, oh my God, I'm going to ruin my children and my life is over.
But that's the exciting part, Coxie, is you don't have to.
No.
Right.
And this actually leads back to one of the episodes earlier this week, taking responsibility for, right? So it's not my fault that I had a questionable mother in my teenage years, but I can take responsibility for what happened to me, for how I deal with that and what that looks like moving forward for me. Same way, some of those terrible lessons I was taught in business or in life, they're not my fault that I was taught that. It's not my fault I was in that situation, but I can take responsibility for what I've seen and for what I learn from that and what I perpetuate moving forward. So it leans back into that same taking ownership, I suppose, of where you're at and what you're doing. Same to be said whether the relationships are personal or business. You have to take responsibility for that at some point or it will never change. It just keeps happening. It got big, didn't it?
Yes. All right. So I guess fuck it. It's Friday. It's fuck it Friday. I want to hear from you personally. You don't have to make this public. Drop me a message. Let me know if you've had a similar awakening or realization or feeling that gut feeling of, hang on a minute, what's going on here? This is not me. I keep doing these things. Why? How come I can't stop doing this? Or why do I keep doing that? I reckon that's a sign that there's something a bit bigger going on. Drop me a message. Have you noticed anything like that? Let me know. I'd love to hear from other people who have maybe had a similar experience and, finding that challenging. So
I think your inbox is going to be overflowing.
Well, I reckon, and I'm ready for this, Coxie. I'm ready. Because basically my email has stopped working in the last 2 days because I fucked with it. So no one's going to email me anyway. But I want to hear from you. Just let me know. Have you noticed the same thing? And tell me about it. Because I reckon this is an area that people don't talk about hardly ever. And that bothers me.
Yep. I don't know where to go with this. This was huge and nothing like I thought it was going to be. So I hope we have not dropped a bomb in your lap and you're trying to put the damn thing out as you're driving around the street. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This is how we talk off air. This is the stuff Warwick and I talk about when we're not talking to you. We talk about these bigger issues. So we just decided it was time to bring some of this stuff to you guys as well because we know you're likely to be in the same position we're in.
Yeah, and let me know. Am I the only one who thinks this way? Am I the only one who sees this stuff? I doubt it. But let me know. Jump in the conversation. I'd love to hear from any of you that have maybe noticed some similar patterns emerging or issues popping up. And let me know what you think. So you can do that either by dropping me a message. You'll find me on the good old Stalkbook. You can do it via the group. You can send us a message on our page. You can send me an email to warwick@tradiesinbusiness.com.au. There you go.
That you won't get because it's not working.
Because it's fucking broken. If anybody knows a good IT person, let me know. But yeah, let us know what your thoughts are on the matter and what you've seen pop up, either for you or for people around you. Often there's people around us that we notice this stuff in before we notice it in ourselves. So
that's true.
And apart from that, Coxie, I think everybody should go leave us a review.
Of course.
And and everybody should be in the group.
Of
apart
course.
From that, I don't have anything more to say on this Fuck It Friday.
I think you've said enough.
You're welcome. Everybody, you're welcome. Let's all have a hug.
We'll see you at 4:00 this afternoon for Trade Desk Drinks, Trade Deskers.
Yes.
I haven't decided on today's cocktail, but I will come up with some sort of concoction before 4.
And
this is an excuse for me to drink at 4. This is not terrible.
Yeah, you set this up all for you, didn't you?
I really did. Selfishly, this is all about me. Are you surprised?
And I am. I'm going to bail a little earlier today from drinks because it's date night for me tonight. I'm going out to dinner by not leaving the house with my lovely wife.
Nice. Steak on the menu, I'm sure.
No, actually, roast pork.
Oh, God, I love roast pork.
I found a delicious-looking pork leg at our local butcher, and so I snapped it up.
Does it have crackle?
It does. It has to. How can you have a pork roast and not have crackle, Coxie?
I don't know.
Crazy?
You can't. They don't go. You have to have crackle.
Absolutely. So anyway, come join us this afternoon for a drink, 4:00. And that's about it. Thanks for listening.
See you then.
Hooroo.
You've been listening to the Tradies in Business podcast with Warwick Bidwell and Nicole Cox. Find out more about today's guest, tools for your trade business, and other cool stuff at tradiesinbusiness.com.au.